right, guys, what about smell? So the scientific fancy name for smell is olfaction. Olfactation. Olfaction. Fancy word for smell. And within that is the olfactory epithelium, which is a thin membrane. So located in the roof of each nasal cavity, contains approximately 5 million receptors, sends information to the olfactory bulb. And I have a note that says not for distance. I'm not sure what that means. So what are the pathways? From the olfactory bulb, there are two pathways. So even when it came to vision, and it came to, I don't think vision had two pathways, but when it came to, I'll figure that out right now. When it came to sound had two pathways, remember? And so now we have smell has two pathways. So pathway number one projects to the olfactory cortex. Some call it primary olfactory cortex, different than other primary cortices or primary cortexes. Evolutionary older cortex, 3 layers, not 6 layers, contains the piriform cortex and regions of the amygdala. Projects to thalamus and then the frontal cortex. Begins at lower level to higher like the rest. Lower level brain to the higher brain. And then the pathway number 2 from the olfactory bulb projects to the hypothalamus, hippocampus, and upper brainstem. So smell has to do with mating, behavior, and aggression are linked to these areas and are linked to olfaction, which is smell. So how do we smell? Stereochemical theory of olfaction, which is considered to be wrong. 3D of the smell molecule, 3D or 3 dimension of the smell molecule determine whether it would fit into the receptor. Smell molecule is what we smell. Originally theorized that there were 7 basic types of receptors to account for all shapes of smell molecules. That there was only 7 basic types of smell receptors for anything you smell. There was only 7 basic, but it turned out to be wrong. That's considered the stereochemical theory of olfaction. 3 dimension of the smell molecule determined whether it would fit into the receptor. Originally theorized that there were 7 basic types of receptors to account for all shapes of smell molecules. I could feel like that one might be on the test, whether true or false. Stereochemical theory of olfaction. Anyway, so that turned out to be wrong. It turned out that there's probably a lot more than we think. It's not just 7 types of chemical smells. So here's some problems, some issues or smell disorders, if you want to call it that. The problem of anosmia, which means that someone has anosmia, they can't smell, losing the ability to detect certain smells. 1 out of 10 cannot smell cyanide poison. So 1 out of 10 people cannot smell cyanide poison. If the loss can be this specific, do we have separate smell receptors for every smell out there? So we need more than just the 7 basic types of receptors originally proposed in the stereochemical theory of smell. So smell receptors, there's some scientists that are known, Buck and Axel, 1991. There are at least 400 smell receptors in the human. There might be up to 1,000. Remember, they only said there was 7, but there are at least 400 smell receptors in the human. Might be up to 1,000. Each responds to a few different chemicals. Might respond to a particular part of a chemical structure, which shows up in different smells. Each smell reacts at different receptors as well. The brain looks at the combination of receptors that are activated to determine a smell. Okay. What about transduction? Smell changed into electrical signals. Remember, we smell chemicals. So when the brain, remember, If we see something or hear something, in order for our brain to process it, we need to transduce that either into a chemical or an electrical signal. Remember, our neurotransmitters, electrical and chemical signals. And we also have the action potentials, which are sodium, calcium, potassium, and anions. So that's what transduction does. But we smell chemicals, so there's no need to transduce smell from physical sensations into neurological signals. Taste is also a chemical sense. So taste and smell are both chemical senses which don't need transduction, like sound and vision. Because smell is known as a chemical sense, also taste. Smells are chemicals, so there's no need to transduce them from physical sensations into neurological signals. Yeah, so that's it so far.